There was something distinct about Dark Link. He's not the hardest boss in the Zelda series, and I doubt he's the most charismatic one either. Even so, for a lot of people, the encounter with him remains one of the most intriguing in the entire franchise. Maybe you can feel it too when you look back and remember what that fight was like. What emotions does that memory bring back? There was a dominant structure to boss fights. Large creatures, physically imposing enemies, and a setting that leaves little room for mistakes. Everything is built to create a sense of fear and superiority. Dark Link doesn't follow that. The scale of the conflict becomes smaller and the combat links into something stranger. The wound is silent. There is no memorable music. The entire concept feels liminal. You enter, you walk all the way to the structure at the end and find nothing. Then, on your way back, suddenly there was a shadow, your shadow, standing before you. Nothing there should feel that impressive. It's just a darker version of the protagonist reflecting your own movements. So, why do so many people still remember this fight decades later? I think there are a few reasons for this. The arena barely even feels like an arena. The shallow water, the empty sky, and the near silence create a completely different atmosphere. It feels built for contemplation, as if the game were saying, stop for a moment, take a look, notice who's standing in front of you. Then, there's the nature of the enemy itself. As I said before, Dark Link doesn't follow the usual boss formula, and honestly, it makes sense to argue that he isn't really a boss at all. But beyond that, he feels different even from the ordinary enemies in the game, despite how diverse they already are. He has your size, he uses your sword, your same movements. Dark Link comes from Link himself and from his own abilities. He feels much more like an obstacle than a villain. Fans of the series already know that Dark Link didn't show up firstly in Ocarina of Time. His first relevant appearance goes back to Zelda 2, but Ocarina turned the idea into something much bigger because that's where he stopped being just a mechanic and became a symbol. Here, there's one line from Navi that feels too important to ignore. If you ask her for help during the fight, she says, "Conquer yourself." Since the beginning of the game, Navi acts as a guide, a voice that helps whenever you don't know what to do. To avoid spoiling the experience, her advice is usually indirect, but here, she couldn't have been more direct. Dark Link has a very unique trait. Ganondorf wants to conquer the kingdom. Majora wants destruction. Other bosses want to defeat you. Dark Link doesn't seem to want anything. He doesn't explain himself. His threat comes from the way the player sees him. He has no ambitions. He simply exists in front of you, like a mirror, and that brings to mind Young's famous idea of the shadow. Not exactly evil, but the parts of ourselves that remain hidden. Fears, impulses, wounds that never truly healed. They only disappear from sight. Dark Link seems to carry a bit of that. He has no identity of his own. Mechanically, at first, he doesn't even attack you. He stands still if you stand still. As you attack him, while he gradually becomes darker and more opaque, He abandons that defensive posture. That shift in the mechanics opens the door to a second interpretation that intrigues me even more. Because maybe Dark Link isn't unsettling simply because he is your shadow. To me, he is unsettling because of the hostile reputation we give into shadows and reflections, which shouldn't make much sense because shadows shouldn't have reputations. But think of almost any movie scene where a reflection in the mirror stops mirroring and starts acting on its own. Whenever that happens, the expression turns dark and nothing good follows. That feeling comes from a very common fear, the fear of yourself, of whatever might exist deep inside of you. There was one specific feature of the fight we already touched on. Dark Link reacts to your movements, he anticipates, he imitates, and that creates a completely different sensation from fighting any other enemy. Because at first, it corners the player, your own defensive habits, your own attack patterns. They turn against you in an intimidating kind of synchronization. It feels like fighting someone who knows how to read you better than anyone else. And there was something deeply human about that. A lot of the time, our hardest obstacles don't come from outside. They come from what we already know about ourselves. From procrastination, laughing at our excuses. From pride, learning how to speak in our own voice. Nobody knows your weak points better than you do. And that leads to the ironic conclusion that facing yourself feels fundamentally unfair. But there is a third interpretation that I like even more, because it adds another layer to what this battle means. We see a singularity about time, maybe dimensions in Ocarina. Link shifts between being a child and an adult. The game does this for several reasons: to increase the challenge for players, to make the gameplay itself more dynamic, but narratively, I think it also serves another purpose: to explore the idea of growing up, and to give the experience of maturation more depth. Adding the symbolic challenge feels like a brilliant decision, because real growth demands confronting internal struggles. And there was something beautiful and a little sad about growing up. We don't always grow by just adding something. Sometimes we grow by leaving something or even someone behind. By forcing you to innovate in combat, Dark Link pushes you to abandon a safe pattern you had relied on until that point. From that perspective, the point isn't opposition to your dark side, it's expanding your own possibilities. Dark Link never changes, you do. He doesn't learn, he doesn't mature, he continues to exist as a possibility, but he stops blocking your path because you manage to conquer yourself. I think that's why so many people still remember this fight. The shock of such an unusual challenge, the struggle of adapting, the mechanics themselves, all of that matters. But facing a silent enemy, one that doesn't want to destroy everything, one loaded with symbolism, one that forces you to confront your own flaws, it leaves a mark. The way I see things, Dark Link breaks away from the regular test of strength and skill. His challenge becomes something else, a test of whether you can stop being predictable, even to yourself. If you enjoyed this, please hit the like button. If you want more, please subscribe. I'm Charlie, and I truly appreciate your time.